Over the years, and I get goosebumps when I think about this, we actually created an engine. We didn't start thinking that we could get 1 billion. We started out saying we need to do some fundamental growth things right, and we'll see where it takes us. And so to actually have got to a level of $1 billion is quite remarkable and is a tribute to the people in the organization who were part of my army of advocates for the notion of be different or be dead.
Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhne.
My guest today is Roy Osing, the powerhouse leader who took a startup to $1 billion in annual sales. With over 40 years of executive experience, Roy is the only author, entrepreneur, and business strategist delivering practical, audacious, and unheard-of ways to build high-performing businesses and successful careers. As a former president, CMO, and entrepreneur, Roy knows exactly what it takes to scale a company from the ground up. He's also a blogger, mentor, and the author of the Be Different or Be Dead book series, sharing his no-nonsense approach to winning in business. So we're going to listen to somebody who's actually done it versus somebody who would like to do it. So Roy, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I'm honored to be here and have an opportunity to speak with you and your audience.
Another funny sidebar here is that Roy is more Norwegian than me. So I live in Norway, but Roy has Norwegian ancestry. So we're having a nice little gab before this, which is quite nice. And he's been here a couple of times. So welcome, Roy. So Roy, your book, and I've gone to your website. I'm just going to share this on the screen so that folks can have a look at it as well. But your book is really exciting because I think one of the issues that folks don't often look at is being different. We've heard this from Apple and people have said, oh, yes, follow Apple. But how do you do it, basically? So here's the website, and we've got this Be Different or Be Dead. I see there's a skull theme going throughout all of your communications on Twitter and Instagram. So we'll go into that a little bit later. But there's a whole bunch of different books here as well. Be Different or Be Dead. Weekly calendars. I love that. So I like calendars and being organized. But now that we've touched on that, I would like to go into a bit of your background because I did a bit of sleuthing and I saw a lot of work in the telco industry and then a huge gap from 1977 to 1995. So that immediately spurred my interest. But you can skip over that if you're in jail or something like that and just go into how you became on the road as a heavy metal artist. But maybe just take us through why people should listen to you about what you've got to say.
Well, I guess in a nutshell, anybody out there who's interested in real solutions to a typical problem that most businesses have, which is to grow, should be listening to somebody who's actually done it. And so I had the fortune, sitting in a telco environment, to be asked when the internet technology, IP technology, was just coming out, to basically take what was then an early stage data company and take advantage of the internet and grow this puppy as much as we could. And so that's where I started and basically decided that there were a number of things that we needed to do. And over the years, and I get goosebumps when I think about this, we actually created an engine. We didn't start thinking that we could get 1 billion. We started out saying we need to do some fundamental growth things right, and we'll see where it takes us. And so to actually have got to a level of $1 billion is quite remarkable and is a tribute to the people in the organization who were part of my army of advocates for the notion of be different or be dead. By the way, today that business is $18 billion a year. So we like to think that we had a small role to play in getting that run rate going, Nicholas.
Your years of experience prior to taking the business to this $1 billion, which is a few years ago, and $18 billion now. Did you think when you were starting out that you should stay at one company for your entire career or move around? I mean, it's obviously different for everybody, but what was your mindset? Were you loving your job so much? Did you see potential? What is it that kept you in this particular industry for so long? Because a lot of folks are hopping from flower to flower and missing out on growth opportunities.
No, it was really never an issue for me, quite frankly. I joined this telephone company when I graduated from the University of British Columbia in an entry-level job. And I was always kind of like a disruptor anyway. So I was the guy that basically questioned everything and looking for uniqueness and being different, etc. So when I got into this company in my early years, I decided that I would take what I could get. So I actually started out as a systems analyst in the IT department. And I just went on a process of learning the business and learning what was missing and watching how what was missing was going to create a challenge for us as the environment changed. And sure enough, I mean, that business went through deregulation when it was largely a voice company. Well, there's a huge learning there about, well, what about customers? We don't do orders anymore. We actually create experiences and the marketing changes, et cetera. And I basically learned my way around the organization and positioned myself in a way that I was a logical choice for certain positions that had to be responsible for the new world that we were in. So I ended up eventually as a chief marketing officer, which had responsibility for the brand in TELUS, before they basically asked me to consider this other opportunity to take advantage of the internet. I was kind of like a utility guy. I got to the point where my brand was, I can fix this. Right? So if there's a problem in an organization, and it didn't really matter whether it was a customer service organization, it was kind of cool because they would call me up and say, I need you for 6 months. The CEO would say, Roy, come over into sales. I need you to fix what's going on over there. This is not good. Go fix it. So I was kind of like the fix-it guy and had a tremendous opportunity to learn and a tremendous opportunity to try things, tremendous opportunity to fail. But at the end of the day, carry this whole be different or be dead brand. I didn't call it that then, but that was essentially, when I look back, that's what it was, to carry that forward and use it as a way to be different from everybody, to distinguish myself in ways that matter to the company. And that's important. This is not about narcissism. Being different in my world is not about that. And a lot of people think it is, and it's not. It's doing things differently in a way that other people care about. And I started to see that get a little bit of traction and basically carried that forward into my role as president of this company and created an army of advocates that love to step out and do things differently and gets shit done. And that's what we did.
You've touched on three things here. You've spoken about advocates, and you mentioned that a couple of times. So obviously that's something that we as listeners need to keep in mind. Secondly, you're talking about be different or be dead from a personal branding perspective, but also a business perspective. So can you break maybe those three down in terms of the importance of a business being different as an individual employee or personal brand being different? And then why have you brought up advocates so much?
With the advocate pieces, because whenever you're trying to instigate significant change, okay, there's a heck of a lot of reticence, there's a lot of pushback, there's a lot of problems that you run into. And so the way I worked my way through this metamorphosis to try and get to a be different culture, if you will, is to infect people. To infect them with the be different or be dead virus. That's a virus you want to have, right? And basically sell them, show them, get their support, serve them, help them, etc., to expand our scope of influence through this advocate notion to help us on the journey. And without that, it never would have happened. This isn't about the CEO or the president declaring that we need $1 billion, right? It's about earning the right to have people follow you and do different things and see the amazing results that produces, and then go pat them on the back and throw a warm blanket, give them a hug and say, let's go do this sucker again. So the whole advocacy piece was huge. Be different or be dead was founded in the business application. And I discovered later that it was just as important in a career sense. But in the business application, it's basically my way of saying businesses then and today do a mediocre job of differentiating themselves. So let me explain that. I mean, generally speaking, regardless of what people call unique selling propositions that aren't unique at all, generally speaking, organizations will resort to what I call claptrap aspirations and narcissism as a way to differentiate themselves. Okay, and by that, I mean, they use words like, we're better, we're the best, we're a market leader, we're number one, we exceed customers' expectations, we got better employees. All of those expressions mean absolutely nothing to a customer who's about to make a choice among suppliers. It's what you think of you. Well, I got news for you, okay? You want to go on a growth spree? It ain't about you. It's about the way you can serve others And the piece that's missing in all of today's thought process around narcissism is this notion that you're not alone. You need to speak to people and compare yourself to the other choices that they have. And you see, that is the missing element today. That's why I came up with this notion called the only statement. So rather than say we're the best customer service provider out there, what you want to do is figure out, first of all, what the clients that you want to serve, what they crave, and be the only one that satisfies that craving the way that you do. And so it's a way of targeting a unique, emotionally driven need, I call it a craving, and being the only ones that satisfies that in the way that you do. That's the source of the only statement, and it cuts through the clutter. It doesn't rely on anything but fact. Of course, you have to test it. It has to be relevant. It has to be compelling, and you need to be the only one that does what you do. I've had to create a strategic game planning process around the whole thing that will actually create a game plan with the only statement inherently in it, the customers you want to target. So the essential is called strategic game planning. And it's my way of diverting from traditional planning methods and actually having a planning process that's built to execute. Because I believe we spend way too much time planning and not enough time executing. And in my world, 20% of the time goes to get the plan just about right. 80% is spent on execution and the things that you need to do to actually implement it. So I've had to create an entire process to do that, part of which is this differentiation piece. Because the only statement and what you're unique at should be driving the tactics of your company. You mentioned AI earlier. Look, it's really simple to me. The world is full of tactics right now. Everybody chases yummy tactics. They chase AI. They chase social media. They chase predictive modeling. They chase all this stuff. And I always get questions about, well, Roy, what do you think of this? And I go, I got no idea. What you need to do is describe to me the context within which that application may have meaning. Okay, and so the only statement informs that. Let me give you an example. I just finished some work with a client that started out in the lawn cutting business, okay? We did a strategy session, and his only statement is as follows that he actually came up with. This company is the only service provider who delivers tailored property development solutions for strata corporations. We call them strata corporations. In the U.S., they call them homeowner associations. I don't know what they call them in Norway. But this cluster of apartments or homes, so he thought he was in the landscaping business. He's now the only one in the property development business. Now, it's a particular kind of property development that leverages the relationships he has with suppliers, like plumbers and painters and everything else. And he's a single point of contact. My point is that statement drives everything that he does. It drives all of his tactics, all the ways that AI may even have relevance, all of his social media, the platforms he uses, etc., are driven by that only statement. And I find that the piece that's missing today is that contextual piece we've been talking about. Let's jump on the AI bandwagon. I'm not putting those down. They have to have relevance within a context. And that's a huge piece that's missing today.
People have a big issue with FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. And this is where your work becomes so important, because I've had this myself. When I started my own advertising agency, I did websites, I did logos, I did internal branding, I did internal architecture, I did packaging design. And you'll see this on the majority of startup ad agencies or brand agencies or web dev agencies. They've got a smorgasbord or an entire washing list of these generic services that nobody really knows what they're good at. And I differ slightly to you just with wording, and I call it, what's your Big Mac? So what is the one thing people go to your business for? You can upsell them on all the other goodies, but I love your concept of the only statement. If you can tell me, how difficult is it to actually get to this? Because a lot of companies, this is when they have this aha moment of, wait a minute, like you said with the lawn business, holy crap, that's amazing. I am the only one who does this, or I'm the one who can really corner this market, because that's what people are searching for. How long does that process take? How do you thread that needle for folks who want to actually reach much bigger market, and you're now constricting my market to only 10,000 customers when I could have 1 million customers? What are you doing to me, Roy?
You can do it in 48 hours. And let me tell you how. Strategic game planning is all about answering 3 questions. The first one starts out with numbers. It says, how big do you want to be in 24 months? Not 5 years, 24 months, 24 periods of 30 days. Now, why do I talk about it that way? It's because it keeps you focused on execution. You don't get carried away by aspirations and helium-filled statements of what you think you're going to achieve. Because growth is not about that. Growth is about getting stuff done. And the other thing is it's all about top line. It's got nothing to do with profitability, margins, or anything. It's a revenue-generated thing. So a typical answer to a how big question could be, we intend to grow top-line revenues from $1 million today to $5 million in 2006, full stop. Answer, that's it. Second question says, where are you going to get the money? This is not a mass market world, okay? So this is all about trying to figure out as few customer groups as you can that have the latent potential to deliver the $5 million. So this isn't about looking abroad and trying to be broad in terms of your value proposition. It's really, really focused. And this is another major issue that startups have because they're floggers. They're flogging technology. This isn't a flogging exercise. Get those customer groups identified, as few number as you can, and take a deep dive in terms of what they crave, not what they need. This is about figuring out what the emotional triggers are. I know that you want or that you need internet, but you're going to buy from me because of everything that I wrap around that. So that's the second question. Third question, how are you going to compete and win? That's where we create the only statement. So a strategy, okay, for an organization, quite frankly, that wants the only statement, you need to do your work. You can't start out with the only statement because it's not about what you do. It's about what the customers that you target crave and how you can satisfy those cravings in a way that nobody else does. In this particular case, the example I started out with, they had no idea that they wanted to be in the property development business when we started the strategy session because they said, hey, we're just landscapers. However, through working through what they learned about their customers, et cetera, one of the things came through that, look at the presidents of every strata want one thing, single point of contact for everything they need. I said, oh, sounds like a property development solution to me, because I'm not a facilitator, right? I get strategy out of people's heads. And they go, well, no, we're not in property development. I said, yes, you are. Let Grandpa Roy describe it for you. And so we did that, ended up with an only statement that they're just blown away. So the answer to your question is, you can't go straight there. Because if you do, you're going to be making a huge mistake that everybody's making today. It's not about the products and services that you have. Those are simply instruments of value satisfaction. The value satisfaction comes from cravings, and you have to do that work first. Now, you'll notice that the process I described starts with numbers. Most traditional planning models end up with numbers. But when you really think about it, if you want to actually describe the character of the strategy you need, it has to start out with the boldness of what you want to achieve from a top-line revenue perspective. And it's top-line because top-line is how people feel about the value they're getting. Nothing else matters, right? Now, there's going to, downstream, of course, there's some financial issues to take care of, but that's not going to make you unique. That's not going to make you grow. It's going to make you grow is a healthy top line that's expressive of the fact that people understand you're different in a way they care about and that you're providing unique value that nobody else does. And you actually have employees that love human beings. That's the other piece. And so, yeah, I do that with clients in 48 hours, Nicholas. It's not a big deal. It's just the structure that I have and the fact that, quite frankly, most of the time I know what their strategy should be before we even start the session, just by doing some work on their business.
But yeah, I get it. I mean, if you've done enough of these, you can look at something like a mechanic and hear a knocking on an engine. I know what that is. You still want me to look at the exhaust pipe and the carburetor or whatever they've got in cars now, but you know what it's going to be. So, yeah. 48 hours, I love it. I think, especially in today's day and age, we need to get moving quite quickly. But Roy, what you've mentioned here doesn't sound like rocket science. Why is it so difficult for people to, and I know what I'm going to say, it's structure, and your process and your structure sounds fantastic here. Now, let's talk a little bit about this book. Say folks are in an igloo somewhere and can't get directly in hold of Roy. What is this book going to do for them? Is this a download of your brain? What made you write this book, Be Different or Be Dead, and who is it for?
So the latest book...
And show it to me. You showed it to me earlier, so you may as well show it to our audience.
So this is number 7. Of course, my favorite skull. That's the 7th book in the Be Different or Be Dead book series. I started writing in 2009. I wrote my first one, and I've written some ebooks that people wanted to take a deep dive in terms of marketing, sales, careers, leadership. And so I wrote a few ebooks, and they're all on my website. And then I decided to do an updated version, which is really the latest one that's out. And look, it's really simple. All it is a compendium of the things stratified and categorized in terms of functions that people would understand. It's a summary of the things that worked for me, that we actually did as an organization to get to $1 billion in sales. So it talks about the strategic game planning process that you and I were just discussing. It talks about marketing for cravings. It talks about developing a service strategy where the intent is to create gasp-worthy moments and take customers' breaths away, and what you need to do that. The other point is it's a how-to book. Okay, it's something that if you're in your igloo and you're having a problem and you don't want to know the theory behind it, you just want to do something and get some stuff done, that's the book you want. And so, the business side for me is a given. It's founded in strong business. The thing that makes it different is it's a guide, right? And it's based on how leaders can energize and mobilize the fire in people's belly to move forward in a highly competitive world and get remarkable things done. And that's what that book is all about. And it's got edgy language in it. I swear a bit and, all this kind of stuff.
Well, it's got a skull on the cover. I mean, you're already giving a warning there.
You think I actually had to fire 3 editors, who tried to apply English 101 right through the AI algorithm, I suspect, to try and change the way I talk. I said, you get out of here. I mean, the most difficult thing about writing is to preserve your voice. That's all you got, dude. That's why I love podcasting, because there's nothing you can do to adjust my voice. I am who I am, and you're getting me. But in a written format, it's much more challenging. And so I try to make it fun and interesting and shocking. I want people to go, what? But at the end of the day, I want them to trust me and trust that if you try a few of these things, you don't have to gobble up the whole thing. Pick a couple, try them out, have some fun with them and say, whoa, okay, this sounds pretty cool. Then do another one. So it's that kind of a roadmap on a journey of growth for companies and individuals. The same principles apply to an individual looking for a career. The only difference is the interpretation of the questions, because the how big question is about what position do you want in 24 months? Got to be really specific, right? The who do you want to serve talks about what I call the foxes. Who are the decision makers in the organization that you need to get to, right? To get their support to advocate you for a position. And then the third one is you have a personal only statement. You develop that, and that becomes your career strategy and career plan. And you just start executing it, learn as you go, revise it, tweak it. And so that's kind of the way we go. You mentioned something earlier about why more people don't do this. Look we have a society and a business world that's stuck in tradition. They're stuck in theory. They're stuck in academia. And I'm not denigrating that, but that's where it is. And the most difficult thing for me to do is interject into that momentum stream and say, hey, yeah, but what about stuff that actually works? Well, it's easier for people, right, to apply the formula and come up with a linear regression analysis that gives them a forecast than to sit in a room and argue with 3 other people about how big you should be. It's just easier. And so there's a herd of that thinking, and it's really hard. I'm finding it extremely challenging to break through that. Conversations like this, that's where I spend my time. I mean, because they're so important. And I think it's working, but I don't know, Nicholas, if I'm going to live that long to see it.
Well, let's hope you do. Well, look, we are living in interesting times where there are quite a few disruptors, especially down south from you folks. And I think people have obviously read your book, possibly, because they're disrupting the living shit out of everything and thinking differently, which I love. So if people want to get personal and they want to get in touch with you because they think, wait a minute, this
Roy. Papa's my
Roy.
Norwegian Papa. You can take that out if you want. It doesn't matter.
No, it's good. I mean, the names here are quite funny because then Murmur is your mother's mother, so your grandma, and Fafa is your father's father. So they've got very different ways of naming grandparents here, which is quite fun. But sounds very rude in Afrikaans, my home language. So we won't go there.
Okay.
If they want to get in touch with you for either mentorship or for going through this 48-hour process that you're discussing and buying your book, where can I send them?
I have a website, bedifferentorbedead.com, and I put as much resource on there as I can. There's a blog on there. Please subscribe to my blog and get my stuff every week and give me comments on it, etc. All the information on my books is also on my website. There's a quiz. There's a Be Different or Be Dead quiz that you can take to find out where you fit on the Be Different or Be Dead continuum. And it's kind of a fun way to determine the extent to which you're actually practicing certain Be Different or Be Dead principles, and perhaps the ones that you need to pay more attention to. So it's a prioritization thing. But I also have an email, roy.osing@gmail.com, and I welcome people to reach out to me and have a conversation and about my stuff and argue with it, disagree with it, but let's have a conversation and move forward. I really enjoy that, to be honest, because I get them all over the world. It's just wonderful to see through this kind of a vehicle, by the way, just see the kind of extent of an impact that's possible, right, if you just stay at it. So my hope is it will be possible because I'm staying at it.
I see you've got a very active Twitter as well, and that's at Roy Osing. So I would suggest that people take a look at that. And Roy, thanks for joining us.
I really do appreciate your comments. So why not go and watch this live on YouTube, or go to my website, kuhne.no. That's KUHNE.no for more information.